Harihi Om Sadashivasamarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. Om. Well, welcome to our Bhagavad Gita class. We are in the Shloka number 35 of chapter 1 of Bhagavad Gita. The Shloka goes like this. Yetan nahantumicchami gnatopi madhusudana api trailokya rajyasya heto kim no mahi krite. So here Arjuna is continuing to lament. He is continuing to express his frustration. He is continuing to express the attachment which has totally shaken him from within. Etan, all these is the literal meaning. All of them, right? All those who are in this war front, na hantum, never to kill, not to kill. Ichchami is my desire. Basically, I do not want to ever kill all these warriors. Ganataha api, even if, which is api, it comes to the cost of being killed. Ganataha is being killed. So even if it is coming at the cost of myself being killed, I don't want to kill them. Madhusudana, O Lord Krishna, the one who killed the demon by name Madhu. Api Trilokya Rajyasya. Even if I am offered the possibility to rule the three worlds, Trilokya Rajyasya, Heto, in exchange, not in exchange of, in terms of the war, but in exchange of killing them, right? For killing them, even if I'm being offered the three worlds to rule, I would not want to do. Kim no, what to speak of Mahi Krite, doing it for this world. The Mahi means world, Mahi Krite means one who is the ruler of this world. So he says, I would not do it even if in case all the worlds I get to rule. The three lok that is being spoken about is the upper lokas, loka, and the lower lokas. Right. And hence, let us try to cover a little bit on what these lokas are. He says three lokas, but the reference here is to all the 14 lokas. How does it form? And that is what we are going to look into for this class today. Now, Trilokya, or even when we were talking in terms of Vamana Avatar, he is given only 3 steps. And he covers in the first step all the way to the Brahma Loka. And in the second step, all the way to the Atala Loka. To the Patala Loka. And then he asks, what should I do with my third feet? That is when he surrenders his ego. So wherever the term Trilok is being used, it is a short form of representing the 14 lokas. So whenever somebody says three lokas, you need to understand that they are referring to all the 14 lokas. In Shastra, we speak of 14 lokas. There are 7 in the lower order, and there are 7 in the upper order, which includes the Bhuloka. So you can say 6 in the upper loka plus Bhuloka, whichever way we put it. Right. So there are 7 in the upper loka, there are 7 in the lower loka, is the way that we speak of. So what are these lower lokas? The first one, which is immediately next to this Bhuloka, is Athala Loka. The ruler is son of Maya by name Bala. The binding aspect here is lust. Now, the characteristics are the Jivan who are in the Athala Loka is considered to be entrapped at the level of lust and material desires. Right? This lust manifests through the distractions caused by three categories of women. Swairini, these are women who lead a life of freedom. Kamini, women who enchant and attract through beauty. And Pumshali, women with unstable relationships. Right? Lust keeps the Jivan bound, diverting the Jivan from the path of Dharma. So what happens is this lust becomes so engrossed into the human being or into the being of this loka that they are unable to even look at Dharma. They always fail in following the Dharma. This is what is the characteristic of Atala Loka. In Vitala Loka, the ruler is Harabhava. It is a form of Lord Shiva with his consort Bhavani. The binding aspect is greed and fear. The characteristics of Vitala Loka is the realm of material wealth and greed. Shiva's attendants, the ghostly beings, are the custodians of gold mines. Jivan is trapped by greed for material possession and the fear of loss, preventing any spiritual growth. So, this is the characteristic of Vitala Loka. You need to understand that the Ishvaraha as a concept, God as a concept, is there in all the lokas. In fact, even ruling some of these lokas or protecting the ruler of these lokas as well. God does not differentiate between those who are in different lokas to those who are in upper lokas. God acts in the same way. That is the beauty of Sanatana Dharma, of our scriptures. Right? It identifies God and binds them to both the good and the bad and provides the means for us to fight the bad and get into the good. Unfortunately, this Dvaita way of, in this dualistic way of expression is our limitation. When we talk of Dharma, we said that there is only one Sanatana Dharma in which there is no Adharma. Right? It is only Acharati, there is no Adharma. But then when we look into some of the manifestations, we split into Dharma and Adharma Vivekam. Right? So we need to understand that. We need to always keep that in mind. Right? So that is why here the beautiful characteristic is the ruler of Vitala Loka is Hara Bhava, which is Hara representing Lord Shiva and Bhava representing Bhavani. The third one is Sutala Loka. The ruler of this is King Bali. We have heard about the story of King Bali. The binding aspect here is ignorance under the service to King Bali. You are performing the service for the king, but the same king is clouding you from seeing the light. It is said that this world is constructed by Vishwakarma, the architect of the Swargaloka, even the divine architect, and serves the kingdom of Bali. Bali, after surrendering to Vamana, was made wealthier than Indra and was given this loka. Lord Vishnu guards this loka, but the souls here remain ignorant until Bali releases them. In other words, the enslavement is so deep that you are unable to see beyond the King Bali into the maker of the King Bali. You stop there. and you assume that this is the end, and whatever the Bali says, you blindly follow. That is the nature of Sutala Loka. Right. So lack of independence and the fear of master, right? The ignorance being so strong and binding are all the characteristics of this particular loka. The fourth of the lower lokas is Talatala Loka. Now, in Talatala, it is the ruler is Maya. He is the master architect. The concept here is that of illusion. In this Talatala, the change is very constant. Life is filled with confusion, and the souls fail to discern the eternal truth. There is no way that they have a progress in the path of finding out the truth. Shiva, in his form of Tripurantaka, protects Maya in this place. Jivan is bound by delusions and struggles to see beyond the illusions of life. The fifth one is called as Mahatala. Here, the rulers are Nagas, basically sons of Kadru. If you go back to those old story where we had the fight between, the Kadru's mother and Garuda's mother, where they say that the horse has a black tail, right? And they find out it is going to be white tail, etc. We have a story around that. Now, this is a very peaceful abode of the Nagas who live with their entire cult and family. However, their peace is constantly disturbed by the fear of Garuda. Garuda, who is an eternal enemy of the serpents, symbolizing the speed and unpredictability of change, is the aspect which keeps them under the fear. Jivan in this realm live in fear, both of that of Garuda as well as of that of the Nagas. So basically, what here it is symbolizing is insecurity and instability. In terms of the sixth one, it is Rasatala. The inhabitants are Asuras, Danavas, and Daityas. So here, cruelty and conflict is the base. Now, this realm is considered the sole of Vishnu's feet. Jivan here live in constant conflict and cruelty, resembling serpents in their behavior. Right? The inhabitants are eternal foes of the Devas and lack their grace. They don't see God, they live in their own belief. God is not a character which is imposed upon me. God is a divinity. It's a property that I realize, see, value, and grow. This aspect of seeing the God in itself is not available for the jivas in the Rasatala. Jivan here is consumed by hostility even towards their own self. So you are talking in terms of a perpetual unrest in the beings. And that is the realm of Rasatala. The last one is Patala. Here, the ruler is Vasuki, the multi-hooded serpent. The binding aspect is limited light and vision. It is total, utter darkness in Patala. Right? And because of this utter dark, what it symbolizes is that there is, knowledge is always identified as a light. When we talk about total darkness, it means there is absolute ignorance. right? This is eliminated only by the jewel on Vasuki's hood, representing very limited understanding. So the Jivan live in confusion and are bound by their inability to perceive any truth at all. The Jivan is trapped in ignorance. There is no view of truth, and there is continuous, perplexity in them. There is continuous misdirection, misguidance. They are lost forever. So these are the characteristic of the seven worlds which are down under. You can see the reflection of all the seven in Bhuloka. So there are some who tend to think that it is Bhuloka itself characterized by such, individual experiences or inabilities. That is a wrong notion. That is not the way the scriptures have narrated it. If you go purely by Veda, that is not the way that it speaks of. The interpretation is that all these are there in this loka also. And Veda also emphasizes that you will have the whatever the nature that you are finding in all of the what is lower lokas, you will have the reflections of it. You will have characteristics of it being exhibited in this bhuloka as well. However, because the bhuloka is shining with the sun, is having the light, it gives you the opportunity to overcome each of these difficulties that you may encounter in your life. And that is done through the knowledge that you get out of it. And that is the reason why the Gayatri mantra or the Savitri mantra that we very famously chant is so powerful, is considered to be so important in our life. To say that, hey, you may be experiencing even the Patala's influence in you. But if you light the, what is a Savitri in you, if you enlighten yourself with that knowledge of light, you will overcome even the darkest of the darkness, which is the reflection of the Patala. So that is the positive side when it comes down to Bhuloka. If you look at the seven upper lokas, the first one is Bhuloka, meaning this physical earth. This is also called as Mrityuloka or Karma Bhumi. When we talk of this earth, we are not just talking of this earth and not the heavenly bodies or the stars or other experiences in the space that you have. In our tradition, we say that this Bhuloka represents the entire realm of your experience, which means even if in case you do not know about a star XYZ, but you have a possibility of experiencing it in terms of a name, reading it in the newspaper or whatever it is, whatever form it may be. If you have that ability, then it is also part of the same Bhuloka. In a uh, in a unconventional way, right? In a funny way, even I can say, if it is part of the three dimensions, then let us assume that it is part of the Bhuloka. That is the way that we would establish in our tradition. It is a sphere of experience where life and death occur and where karma is performed and accumulated. Bhuloka comprises of the earth's landmass, oceans, mountains, and rivers. That is the way that it is generally seen. In our tradition, we define its extent as the region illuminated by the sun, moon, and the stars. Thus, this entire universe is called as Bhuloka. It is the starting point for spiritual evolution and the stage where dharma and karma play critical roles because you have the ability to enlighten yourself. Believe me, what the Shastra says is only from Bhuloka and Brahmaloka, the possibility of moksha itself exists. Even the other upper lokas are not considered as eligible places for one to get moksha. So Bhuloka is the only place where you can get this moksha, and the human form is the most sacred of it all. And the only path to this is Gyan, Jnanat Yevatu Kaivalyam. And so pursuing the path of Gyan is Jnana Yoga, Shravanam, Mananam, and Nitidhyasanam. And we are doing Shravanam. Bhuvar Loka. This is the second one. And here there are some confusions, I should say. In our tradition, we equate this to Pitriloka, representing ancestral lineage. There are other traditions which consider them to be some kind of a transitional loka to the next home. Maybe the Yamlok or other kind of a, what do you say, heavenly bodies are part of that, wherein you go and then you proceed to the hell or you proceed to the heaven and so on. So that the transitional loka is considered by some as Bhuvar Loka. There are other traditions which refer to them as the home to Siddha Purushas. Right? Siddha Purushas are those who have attained the Siddhi in their life. Now, there is a misrepresentation too, which is it is associated with the Earth's atmosphere and space, including the neighboring planets, stars, and comets, etc. It is a Western way of representing this. But tradition takes precedence. There is no definition per se, right? So the best way to understand what is a Bhuvar Loka is it is the first step above, above us, but below the Swarga Loka, the heaven, which is more commonly known. The third Loka is Swarloka or Swarga Loka. It is the celestial abode of the Devas, and it's ruled by Indra. Characteristics are they, okay, there are some who equate this to the solar system housing 330 million devas, right? Swarga is free from sinful and ignorant beings. These are all the characteristics that people have been expressing, right? Basically, Swargaloka is the world of the demigods, the natural forces, which are represented by a, what do you say, metaphorical form, but it's all a concept, Agni, Vayu, etc. Right? So now this Swargaloka is the place where one goes if in case they have done a amazing amount of punya. Right? The good deeds have been performed, so you get to go to Swargaloka. You enjoy the greatness of Swargaloka, and once your punya is completed, you come back to the Bhuloka. That is the only thing that you have to keep in mind. Swargaloka is not moksha. Even there, you complete and then you are coming back to this Bhuloka. The next one is Maharaloka, right? The realm of great rishis who perform intense penance, right? So it is, there is a Tapaloka too, but Maharloka is again people who have been performing a lot of penance, right? They say that the life of one in Maharloka is one kalpa, one full day of Brahma, right? So which is several manvantras, right? So you're talking in terms of a huge, what do you say, lifespan, which is there in Maharloka. The people there are very highly evolved, very matured in their thought and thinking and understanding. But this loka is not free from fear. It is still within the cycle of creation and dissolution. It is still within the path of birth and death. Right? So it is just that the cycle is long, but that fear is still applicable in Maharloka. That is the significance that we talk about. That is a differentiator that we think of in Maharloka. Markandeya is one of the prominent inhabitants of Maharloka. So again, a place of extraordinary spiritual knowledge, deep meditation, but still bound within the cycle of the time of unchange. The fifth one is Janaloka, the sphere of pure consciousness. This is considered to be the home to the Sanat Kumaras, right? The four children who are born from the manas of Brahma, right? Sanakar, Sanandanar, Sanathanar, and Sanat Kumar. Right? So these are all the four. They reside here, representing divine and spiritual purity. Right? I don't want to call it as mysticism. I should change it. But the idea is, when I was writing, it was the only word that came to me. So I wrote it like that. I shouldn't use that word, actually. It is not mystic in nature. It is extremely elevated way of life. It is very, very knowledgeable and very calm and powerful in nature. That is the idea behind the word that has been used. It is the realm of God consciousness where beings act as spiritual healers and teachers. Mahajanas, the supreme devotees of Vishnu, are also considered to be associated with this loka. They include Brahma, Narad, Shiva, the four Kumaras, Kapila, right, Swayambhu Manu, right, Prahlada, Bhishma, and others. Right, this is just taken from available sources. Right, significance is Janaloka is a plane of spirituality, spiritually elevated beings, symbolizing the rise to a state of profound divinity. The sixth one is Tapaloka, the place where people who have done or who have achieved the siddhi in penance and vairagya, in tapas and vairagya, inhabited by immortal beings and uh, Vaibrajas. Right? Vaibrajas are enlightened beings who have achieved purity, self-discipline, and knowledge through tapasya. This loka represents intense spiritual focus and self-realization. One reaches tapaloka after they have transcended the worldly desires and attained a high level of spiritual evolution through vairagya. Right? So that is the key here. You lead a life of tapas. Not only that, in the tapas, you achieve the objective that has been set forth in the tapas. Not only that, you have a very high level of vairagya. Right here, they are not having that fear of death that we had earlier spoken about. So we will not see it in Tapaloka and even in Janaloka, or even when you go down to the Brahmaloka, of course. The last of it is Satyaloka or Brahmaloka, right? Again, it is the abode of truth, the highest plane of existence, right? Here, it is ruled by Brahma. That is why it is also called as Brahmaloka, Lord Brahma, the Chaturmukha Brahma and Saraswati. And there'll be a story where they go to Brahmaloka and there'll be a music going on. And by the time they come back to earth, it would have been one entire kalpa one entire, yug has gone by. They would have gone in Satyug, and they will come back in Dwapara Yuga. This is Balarama's wife, by the way, right? But here the intent is to say that the Lord Brahma is the one who lives there. That is why one kalpa is that long. So even few minutes of spending in Brahma Loka will be a lot of time that is spent in the uh, Bhuloka. All knowledge is realized, and there is no death for those who reach this Loka. Right? Now, when we talk of this realization, people talk of samadhi in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. In our tradition, we say only those who live in this world are as Manushya, and those who live in Brahmaloka have the possibility of moksha, something that I told a bit earlier. Right? This is called as Jivan Mukti and Krama Mukti. Jivan Mukti is while in this life I am getting the moksha. The other one is Krama Mukti, wherein I have attained the realm of Brahmaloka, and then I can go from Brahmaloka to moksha as well. Right? That is why it is called as Krama Mukti. Now, who go to Brahmaloka? Right. So now we have seen almost everyone, those who have done tapasya, those who have got vairagya, right? But we have not spoken about those who have attained the knowledge, but not fully realized this knowledge. Okay. So you should have the tapasya in you. You should have the vairagya in you. On top of it, you should also have the jnana in you. Jnana is not a knowledge about it, right? About the Atma. If you have got the knowledge about the Atma, it means you don't have the knowledge of the Atma. Atma is the subject, the self. So I cannot have a knowledge about myself. I can have the realization of the self. The realization of the self is moksha. But if I have the knowledge of the self with a great degree of clarity, as in it shouldn't so happen that I'm telling you aham brahmasmi, right? You go ahead and you start believing in your life saying that I am the Brahman, right? So you say that, well, I have that knowledge. Actually, no, that is not the knowledge, because tomorrow someone else who comes and they say aham brahmasmi is not a knowledge, it is an exercise to be performed, like what the Visishtadvaita or the Dvaitic school, they when they are discussing about Aham Brahmasmi in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, they say Aham Brahmasi, in this way you should meditate. It is upasana, right? So when they present their argument, your understanding of Aham Brahmasmi will be totally shattered. Right. So attaining a place where you have a firm knowledge, not a blind belief, but a firm knowledge of the realization of subject, but at the same time you have not realized the subject. That is when you get qualified to go to Brahmaloka. That is the way our uh, tradition speaks. There are several traditions, they all speak of different things, and that is the beauty of Vedanta, wherein we discuss all possibilities. And there is a possibility that after doing all these things, Shubhaji could get the moksha and Naresh may still be teaching. Right. So that could be the way that it can happen. So just because a person is teaching doesn't mean they are realized souls. And just because one is struggling to understand the verbal aspect of it, the word related aspect of it, it doesn't mean they have not realized the subject. The objective is to realize the subject in its full form, in its true form. And that is what is moksha. Going into the next shloka, shloka number 36. निहत्य धार्तराष्ट्रान्नः का प्रीतिः स्यात् जनार्दन पापमेवाश्रयेदस्मान् हत्वैतानातथायिनः. Now, what this shloka says is nihatya, as in nihatya dhartarashtrannah. Right. It is generally nihatya is like, I don't hold any weapon is the way we generally take it. Right. Here, the ni becomes a prefix, an upasarga, and hatya is hatya, a killing. Right. Nischayena hatya, by killing certainly, by absolutely killing. Dhartarashtran, the sons of the Dhritarashtra army, Naha, to us, ka pritihi syat, right? Will there be any pleasure for us, Janardhana, O Lord Krishna, one who is a sustainer of all living beings? Jana ardhayati iti Janardhana. We have seen this in Vishnu Sahasranama, right? So basically, it is one who kills, right? Is the way that it will come. But he, by doing so, enables the sustenance, and hence he is called as a sustainer of all living beings when the name Janardhana is used. Papam eva ashrayet asman. It is only going to be the sins that are going to get accumulated in us. Right? Hatva etan, by killing all of them, aatataayees, the sinners. And they are deep sinners, the sinners who only deserve a death penalty. So what he is saying is, these people who are aatataayees, who are sinners of the worst kind, who deserve only death as the penalty, as per the Shastras that we have, Manu Smruti or other Atharva Veda or other places, right? So where it has been very clearly emphasized that death is the only penalty, that kind of sinners, even though they are that kind of sinners, by killing them, I will only get, or we will only get sins. Look at that confusion that Arjuna has come down to. This is the height of the moham, the delusion that has been expressed by Arjuna. Aatataayee. Now, as per Shastra, one who commits one or more of any of these sinful acts, or even induces someone else to go and do it, they both are considered as aatataayees, karta or hetu karta. The first one is sets fire with destructive intents, right? Now, this includes display of cruelty, like torturing or killing others, including animals and other things, right? With no reason, right? For example, if a mosquito is coming to bite you, man, how can I kill? I'll become an aatataayi. If you think like that, then you are wrong, right? You have the right and you have the duty to protect your body. So it is absolutely fine to kill that, what do you say, mosquito, to hit and kill that mosquito. It is not wrong. But if my intent is to kill the mosquito, I search for that mosquito, I capture it, and I cruelly kill it, then that leads me to become an Aatataayee. Can I do the performance of a, the rat being, or, the frog being used in the dissection to understand various things? Well, this is again when you are practicing for that particular purpose, then the Samanya Dharmam and Visesha Dharmam comes into place. Under Samanya Dharma, to have done such a dissection of the frog makes you an Aatataayee. However, if in case you are doing it under the Visesha Dharma, you are a student, you have got to learn that, and this is a thing that has to be done, it is absolutely correct to execute that action. So again, we need to understand the nuances of dharma when we read these things. One who gives poison. This is seen in the process of splitting family structures and even tactically splitting relationships. It doesn't mean I have to buy a rat killer, put it into the food and give it to somebody to be poisoning. Right. Say, for example, I go in private and I talk to Jyoti and I try to say something about, say, Shubhaji, right? And this is splitting the relationships. When I do this, what I have done is I have poisoned. For such a person, the term Aatataayee does apply. One who takes up weapons with adharmic intentions. No, this includes spreading rumors or making false accusations or even speaking on anything with unverified information. Right. So it is going to lead somebody with your knowledge into the wrong direction. That is also considered as taking up of arms or weapons with adharmic intentions. One who robs wealth, right? This includes both deceit, stealing without the other's knowledge or by force. This also includes acquiring something which you did not buy. Right. So there is a very strict way of interpreting this. And we are not supposed to do this at all. In any way or form, we should try to avoid doing this kind of robbery. Unfortunately, this is Kali Yuga. There are so many places where I don't think you have a choice but to do it that way. And when we talk of robbing, it is not only in terms of a physical good, it can also be an intellectual property. It can also be a word of someone else, right? Taking that and putting it as your own words, that is also stealing, right? So anything that you put it, right, is absolutely a stealing. So does it mean I should not quote someone else? No, you're absolutely free to quote someone else, so long as you declare that this is a quoted word, right? This is something I have got from somewhere. Someone else told me this. Absolutely fine, right? So there, the truth is there. That communication break is not the what is being taught here. The teaching here is to say that I should not try to acquire something, be it fame, be it my ego satisfaction, or be it someone else's money or something, sponsorship, right? For doing this kind of acquiring a wealth, I should not use someone else's asset and benefit from it without sharing it with the other person. So that is what is robbing of wealth. Then one who takes another person's wife. Now, this includes destroying the modesty of women, be it physical, mental, verbal, or tactical. It's absolutely, if somebody does that, then he is an Aatataayee. One who takes somebody's farmland. This one is not there in all the text, right? There are some texts which have included this, right? So I just said, well, this is not widely used in the term Aatataayee. This is expressed by some schools. So it is there or it is not there. Maybe some places you may come across with it, or in some places you will not. The punishment, Shastra says, there is no sin to kill such a person who commits the above sins. Keep in mind that action does not make one to be an Aatataayee. The intent behind the action must be understood and Adharma established for the death sentence to be given. Atharva Veda as well as Manu Smruti emphasizes that it is the king's primary duty to kill Aatataayee without forethought, overtly or covertly. This is what Rama uses actually, right? In the Manusmriti, that is what Ramayana, in Valmiki Ramayana, the quote comes from. But it is also there in Atharva Veda, where we can say that very clearly it says you can kill, hiding behind or executing in person, no problem. If it is an Aatataayee, don't even put a second thought. Kill is the way that the scriptures recommend. But remember, the scriptures also recommend that this should follow the process of verbal, maybe physical, right, and exhibition of power, and then the physical or actual killing, the death penalty being executed. And you will see that in Ramayana, that was also established, that I have followed this process as well. All right. And all the, things will be seen. And some check in terms of he's a god. Why is it that he required an additional mala to recognize, Vali from Sugriva, right? So there, the aspect comes into being to say that, hey, this is in accordance with the Manusmriti. He had to establish that. Right. So there are nice discussions and deliberations that we can do on Ramayana, but that is not the subject here. So the objective is to know that, hey, it is not blindly give the punishment. You need to follow the process. You need to establish the Adharma, and also you need to have a clarity in terms of clear warnings being given before the death penalty is executed. Though when it comes to the death penalty, you don't think again. And that is the place where Arjuna is slipping. He is going back to thinking again. That is the point that we want to make here. This is the actual, mantra from Atharva Veda, right? So Indra Jahi Pumamsam. Pumamsam are the men, right? Yatu Dhanam, right? This is the exact reference to Aatataayee. But in Atharva Veda, it is Yatu Dhanam is the word that they have used. Uttastriyam, Mayaya, Shashadhanam, right here, one who causes the distress through deceit is the Mayaya Shashadhanam. Vigrivaso, right? Vigrivaso is Vigataha. Vi as a prefix means Vigataha. Grivam, having the neck cut off or twisted through hanging. Right? Muradeva. Right? This goes with Shashadanam. Right? With the sole intention, right, of, Adharma is being established in this place. Right? So the intent should be there. The intent must be established. Ridhantu creates a loss. Ma te drishan. Right? They should not see Suryam Ucharantam, which is the sun rising. And even today, the practice of giving the death penalty is before the sunrise. And it is because of the Vedic code which we are following. Right. So we need to understand that that is the significance as to why the death penalty is given perhaps across the globe during the early morning before the sunrise. Right. There are some places where they may even give it at 12 in the midnight and so on. But during the day, they generally don't give. Right. So this is the reason. There is a very clearly, and the direction here is to say that once it has been established, they should not see the sunrise the following day. That is what this mantra says. The same thing has been said in Manu Smruti as well. Right. So, not much of a difference between the two. The only emphasis that the Manu Smruti goes is to say that it need not just be a, a man. It can be a woman. It can be a guru. It can be a child. It can be an elderly. It can be a Brahman, right? Or Bahusrutam, or one who is very learned, right? If one is established to be an Aatataayee, kill them immediately. Ayantam, as soon as possible, is the way the Manu Smruti goes. Right, so there are 7 minutes. To conclude this shloka, Arjuna was facing an Aatataayee. Duryodhan had committed all the sins that we saw earlier, including the acquisition of land. Though it is technically may not be farmland, but we can still include it as part of it. So he committed an offense of every kind with a clear intent to commit that offense. So for such an Aatataayee, the punishment is kill him before the sunrise. When the king fails and rather crowns him as the crown prince, the next in command for the throne, then war is the only way out. So the war in Bhagavad Gita or in Mahabharata is so very justified in this single area with this term Aatataayees, where it is Arjuna, it is not Lord Krishna or Yudhishthira coming and telling they are Aatataayees. Arjuna himself says, right, that these are Aatataayees, and yet he is saying that papam eva ashrayam. Right, so it is only the sin that we will be acquiring. This is the height of ignorance as expressed by Duryodhana here. Given that we have 5 minutes, let me see. Yeah, we can finish this one. Good. We can go to Shloka number 37. तस्मान्नार्हा वयं हन्तुं धार्तराष्ट्रान् स्वबान्धवान् स्वजनं हि कथं हत्वा सुखिनः स्याम माधव. So in this shloka, Arjuna is continuing, tasmat na arhaha, right? Arhaha, arhati, that is the way that it comes. Tasmat, therefore, na arhaha, it is not deserving. Vayam hantum, for us to kill, dhartarashtran swabandhavan. Now the Aatataayes have become swabandhavan. Right? Means it is basically who are our own people. So sons of Dhartarashtras together with the friends is one of the way to see it, right? Or Swabandhavan, who are our own people. Swajanam, he, and kinsmen, who are again our own. Katham hatva, how by killing, Sukhinaha Syama, will we become happy? Hey Madhava, the one who killed the demon by name Madhu, or one who is acquired through Madhu Vidya, or the husband of Mother Goddess Lakshmi. Now, Adharma of an Aatataayee is not just a sin that gets punished in the hell after death. Okay? He will definitely get his punishments in the hell after his death. He will have to face the consequences for what he has done. No doubts about it. But the sin committed by the Aatataayee is like a cancer that kills the society from within. Right? We have told you the Kshetra Paripalana is our dharma. This Kshetra is what is getting destroyed by the Aatataayee. There will be so many people, the term that he is using, Swajanam, right? So that our own people are going to be destroyed, not just today, but across for generations. If you do not take that action of holding people accountable and holding up that particular value, then you will see the society will start depleting from within. It will be like a cancer. And that is why the Aatataayis are supposed to be killed with no mercy. It should be done as soon as it is established. Removal of adharma and establishment of dharma is the duty of a king and kshatriyas. War is like a surgery when day-to-day management through punishment does not yield results. Again, the governance model has considerably changed ever since that demarcations of boundaries, creation of countries and controls and other measures came into effect in this world. There are plus, there are minus for every development. So I'm not saying this is right, this is wrong. The only thing is, in the previous way, where the kingdoms were small and the people were free to move, the scope of killing the Aatataayee was very important to preserve the richness, the fertility of the kshetra that we come from, of the kul that we are from, of the family, heredity, culture. All of them will be preserved only when we hold them to our values. The scope of the Aatataayee is so dangerous that it will not even be seen from where and when and how it affected, but the society, the cultural heritage of even great culture like that of our Vedic culture can be totally destroyed from within. That is the danger, and that is why Aatataayis are considered to be deserving the death penalty. War is becoming a nature there because the kings establish the dharma. When another king is unable to establish dharma, then as we had seen, he will not be able to perform the Ashwamedha Yajna because the other kings will see him as an enemy, or they will try to benefit from him and they will kill their own society as well. And then a war will take place and it will bring the course back. And that was the way that we as a society used to live, which is a lot different today. War under such circumstances falls outside the scope of any personal interest. It is the duty for the larger kshetra. And Arjuna was failing in this. So with this, we will move on to Shloka number 38, which we will address in our next class. Let us take the Q&As. Prabha, namaskar. Are you able to go?
Namaskar to everyone. Yeah, hi.
Hi.
No questions. Happy.
Yeah, no questions?
Thank you. No questions.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Jyoti ji.
Jyoti ji has no questions, but I had one question.
Go ahead, sir.
So, when you talked initially about the 14 lokas, a question came up as to if in Advaita everything is unreal, then what is the need and why the elaboration of so many worlds and things like that, which itself should also be unreal?
Well, I think we need to first understand the term mithya, right? And there is a general misconception about the term mithya. The term unreal is the misunderstanding of Visishtadvaita and Advaita philosophers, which has slowly spread into some of the Advaitic schools as well. Right. So the problem is mithya does not mean it is unreal. Mithya means it has an expression, but when you analyze the truth of that expression, it will lead you to nothing. It will lead you to a place where it is not a truth. When we in our tradition speak of mithya, we classify them into two. In fact, when we are in the second chapter, there will be a place where we will be discussing about it. But in short, the answer is mithya is from an anubhavam point of view, and vyavaharika sat is from a transaction point of view. Yesterday or the day before, you came to our house. Now, can you say that this house doesn't exist? We cannot. But can I give existence as an absolute value for the house? The answer is no. This house will deteriorate every second and will eventually get destroyed. The permanence that I try to give to it, and I not seeing the change in it as the truth, is the ignorance. Mithya addresses this ignorance. However, the Vyavaharika Sat is another term that very commonly used in Advaitic traditions, right? So when we say transactional reality, when you talk about the house, it comes within the transaction. You will say, hey, I came to your house, I tried to call you, you are not there, or whatever those things are. For that transactional purposes, this house has a transactional reality. However, the anubhavam, the experience, or my association to the sat of it is in the nature of mithya, which means like what happens in the tradition we speak of Janak Maharaj, where his palace was burning and he was absolutely unshaken, right? That can happen only when you understand the mithyatma bhavam in the transactional sat, in the vyavaharika sat. Now, the 14 lokas that we are talking of is this transactional sat. There is no absolute sat to this 14 lokas as well. And that is why we have the Mahapralayam, wherein the entire creation goes into the unmanifested form and then manifests again. Right. This is to establish that mithyatvam into that. Does it make sense?
Yeah, some of it, but it was too deep for me to immediately grasp. Maybe you'll have to have multiple understanding of mithya itself.
Absolutely. Yeah, we can definitely sit and chat about it for long. Right. In short, just keep this in mind. On the same object that you are seeing, anything, your thought, the food that you eat, the house that you live in, the city, the mountains, whatever you see, whatever you can call as an object. Remember that they give two forms of value to you. One is your experience. right? One that you consume, bhokta, right? That one experience. The second one is the transaction, is the vyavahar that you do. In terms of the experience that you gain to develop the ability to understand mithyatvam in that is one way. And to understand the transactional reality of the same is the other aspect. You do both of them, whether you like it or not. So long as you are living in this world, you have to do it. Once you go into another world, you have to do it in accordance with that world. But this ability to see that mithyatvam in the object, right, is the core for elevating yourself.
Okay.
As I said, this is a very, very deep concept. We will be discussing about this again in the second chapter, maybe when we are talking like about the Atma and Atma Vivekam, which will come like about 15th or 17th or 20th Shloka, right? So around that time, we may be speaking about this again, right? But the intent is to see that this will be repeated over and over again because it is a concept which will be very difficult to digest. As I said, even Advaitic schools are making this basic mistake of misunderstanding mithya with asat. Right? So mithya is that which gives you an experience, but when you analyze, you cannot attribute a sat to it, where the definition of sat is trikale api yedu bhadyam, right? With that which exists in all the three times, right? So that trikalam is totally removed from that, or swatantraha, right? That swatantratha, that independent, not having a dependent existence, and one that exists in all the three time periods is what is sat. When you define this to be the sat, all the objects of your experience becomes a mithya. But if you don't apply that rule, if you are transacting, then you are in the paramarthika sat, vyavaharika sat, and pratibhasika sat. So this becomes either pratibhasikam or vyavaharikam, because other lokas is not something that can be transacted. So you can still consider it to be pratibhasikam, but because you're getting it through a shabda pramanam, we can even classify it as vyavaharikam. But it cannot be called as paramarthikam because it fails on the rule of being existing in all the three times, past, present, and the future, and which is independent in terms of existence. Right? Because of that, even those 14 lokas will fall into the mithya as an experience, but because you transact in it, there is a vyavahar that you perform in it, it still holds the vyavaharika sat as a reality.
Okay.
Quite interesting, technical, I guess. But thank you. That's a great question. Ravi Bhaiya?
I have no question, but thank you, Sham, for asking such kind of questions. These things never even crossed my mind. So thank you through this. I think Prabhaji also texted. Yes, we absolutely love these kind of questions, and Uncle Ji answers are fantastic, and we are learning. Thank you.
I mean, it's more like a fool can answer more questions than the wise can answer. So
The fool can answer more questions. I don't know.
no, a fool can ask more questions. Sorry, a fool can ask more questions than. Sorry,
you kind of shunned me, Sham. I was like, what?
Even I was shocked at that question after I listened again.
भैया जी आपका क्वेश्चन बहुत उच्च लेवल का है. Thank you, man.
I know it was a great, very, very in-depth question. Shubhaji, namaskar.
Shyamji asked that question, but I had a different, um, you know, ignorant question about that. Was we're talking about all these lokas, do they really exist, or is it sometimes what happens is you give reference, or you say, okay, you do these things, that means you're going to go to this loka, or are those that kind of things that is telling, or are those the rules that they say, okay, if you are behaving like this, you're going to go to this loka? Is that what it is trying to tell us, or is this true? Because somehow I'm not able to believe that yes, there are these lokas.
Wow. Man, today I'm getting too many googlies. Beautiful question, actually, Shubhaji. It is not an ignorant question at all. It is a very beautiful question and a foundational one. Right. So not just in uh, Hinduism or Sanatana Dharma, even in other religions, right? They talk of Jannat, the heaven, right? In Islam, for example, in Christianity, we have heaven. So in every concept, in every religion, there is a concept called as after death. Because we can inherently know that I existed and I will continue to exist later. In other words, I should have come in. Not every seed gives a tree. So there is something in the seed which brings about the tree. So inside the tree, I existed in a potential form. This is called as Karana Sharir, which means I, after death, will continue to exist. The Anishwaravadi, right, those who are atheist, they will, the Charuvak is another term that is used, and they don't even give space, they don't even identify space as one of the bhutas. They will have only 4 bhutas, right? So there are other people who go in that particular tradition, right? Yavad jivam sukham jivet, right? So enjoy the life that you live, right? So there is a mechanism of putting it. Now, if you logically analyze, as I said, because the concept of I did not start, it has somehow come into being. It means I have existed before I could express myself as this being. Before a painting is done, the painter has conceptualized in his mind, and that concept he is trying to express on the canvas. So there is always a causal aspect associated to every creation. This also means that after we die, there has got to be some continuity. Can we know through science what that continuity is? With today's science, it is not possible. Today's science is very materialistically looking at it, right? But the soul that we are talking of is something beyond the matter. So through science, we will not be able to establish the soul, at least for now, right? If in case the sphere of science expands, we can come up with some additional theories. But the way that we classify this is, I have to have a belief, and I need to put my belief on something. In the Hindu tradition, we put this belief on the Veda. The Vedas have defined this loka. And if you go into the Veda, you will see amazing logical approach that is being given for each of the lokas. It's a very in-depth study that they have done, or it is a very technically and scientifically sound expression that expresses existence of other lokas. But can there be a proof to it? We cannot. So what we have done is, in Shastra or in our tradition, we classify knowledge as something that you acquire through some means. Like the color of my laptop is something that I have got to know through my eyes. The smell of chocolate I'm getting from my nose, and so on. Right? So these are the main ways in which I acquire knowledge. This is called as pratyaksham. But that is not alone, right? Say, for example, you go outside the house and you see the wet road, right? Then you say it must have rained because the road is wet, right? So now here it is like arthapati, right? Uh, you come and ask me, hey, you went to, what do you say, uh, the Yellowstone. Have you seen that bisons? And I say, yeah, of course. How does it look like? It looks like kind of a little bigger buffalo with a hump on the tap. Right now, you are putting some kind of imagination based on, you have not seen that, but now you are able to compare, you are able to get an idea of what it could be, right? So we have upaman, true examples, and so on. In this, there are 6 pramans that we speak of, right? One of them is called as anupalabdhi. This doesn't exist is another knowledge. There is no parrot in this room. That is a knowledge, right? That non-existence is also considered to be one of the forms of knowledge. But the last one is called as Shabda Pramanam. To this Shabda Pramanam, in our tradition, we give the value to Veda. So if something has been said in Veda, we accept it as though it has been given to us by a Praman. And that is how these 14 lokas exist. Right? So it is not scientific proof or anything of that sort, but it is through the value that we have placed on a text called as Veda. The 4 Vedas that we are talking of, or 5 Vedas. Did I answer your question, Shubhaji?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. That really helps. And I had one more question. I will just pose the question, but we can. I know we are way over the time, um, but we can discuss about it in the next one. So I think today we spent a lot of time learning about if somebody is, I don't remember the word now, I forgot. Um,
Aatataayee.
Aatataayee, then we have to kill them. Um, but when I heard, I was thinking, how is that the right thing? Because you always say forgiveness is the best virtue or is the best thing. But now here we are saying we have to kill. But I think it answered in the same thing, saying that because it is going to spread like cancer in the society, that's why we have to kill. But sometimes you feel like, do you really want to kill? Do you want to forgive and make them realize what they did is wrong and they can also change? So that's what I was
Yeah, I
debating
don't know.
within myself.
I can only speak to what the Shastra says. I cannot determine that this should be done or this should not be done, or is this correct or not correct. Right? So that is done by the kings of the land. So whatever the kings of the land are doing today, that king could be a president, a prime minister, or whatever that portfolio is in whatever form of governance it may be. So when I say they must be killed, it is not that they must be killed in terms of, what do you say, I have to kill or you have to kill. We should not be doing it, right? If I am doing the job of a Brahman here, for example, a teacher here, I should pursue my role of a teacher. I should not go and kill anybody, right? And if in case when I say that they must be killed, I also use the term that is one of the duties of the Kshatriya. And when the killing is not possible, then eventually the war will be the means for cleansing, so that the sanctity of the society is upheld. Now, if in case the current governance says that, hey, give time for them to correct themselves, you should try it out. But then, as I said, you will see that the value in the society will deplete. And it will come to the point where they will say, we cannot take it any further. Or maybe that is the end of the Kali, so very good. All of us will go for the next one to happen, which will be in the Satyug, in accordance with our text. Makes sense? So don't think you have to go and kill. I think you should not. You are
No,
performing the
sorry.
role
I
of
didn't mean
text.
that I
Yeah,
should kill, or we, like, I was referring to the act of killing,
I
whether it
understood
is,
that.
yeah,
But your
okay.
question made it very clear that I had miscommunicated earlier, where I had said you should go kill. If I had used that term, I want to correct myself. That is why I said I used you as an example.
No. Sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
mean that about the text that you should kill or I should. No, I didn't mean that, Nashji, that you gave the wrong message. No, I didn't mean that. But what I was thinking is whether it's a government, whether it's a king or anybody. I was debating within myself whether forgiveness is the right or path, or I know that it's said that if you don't kill, the society will get corrupt, will get influenced, or it's going to spread. Is that the better? Or so I was debating within myself which one is. So that's why I was asking.
I don't know. So, in my opinion, if in case somebody is to ask, right, for example, if Prabhakar is saying that reforming the sinner is an option, right, and I did mention about it to say that, hey, the process of it has to go through, which is samadana veda dandam. That 4 steps has to go through before we actually finally come to the point of killing. Right? So it is not like blindly, okay, this person has stolen, so I'll go kill him. No, that is not what the Shastra says. Here again, the intent must be seen. For example, there is a person who is stealing because he is to feed himself, right? Then you cannot categorize him in the same way of him spoiling the society. We are talking in terms of adharma. We are talking in terms of unrighteous behavior or unrighteous intent, which is expressed through an action, is the place where the killing is given as the punishment. So we need to be very clear. So why is it that the courts are taking such a long time? Because that intent has to be established. Right? If in case we go into the legal study, right, there is something mens res and something like that, it will come, where, the intent behind it is to be studied, which is a direct one, and that could be an interpreted one. And to establish an interpreted one is such a challenge, right? What this person has thought, I cannot establish, but I can say that these are all the behavior patterns, and then I establish it. So the killing is when that adharma is there. It is not the action, but it is the intent which determines the dharma or adharma behind that action.
Oh, okay,
And
thank you.
And
Thank
Prabhakar
you.
is very right about it. If the sinner is worthy of it. And again, neither you nor I play the role of defining it. And if in case we are to define it, then we can discuss further to determine what is the place where the death sentence should be given. I know there are advocates who are very much against any kind of death penalties, right? But if you go in accordance with Veda, death penalty is accepted. In In all the countries, death penalty was once accepted. Now there are some countries which are saying, no, no, no death penalty. Right? And they will change again to say, yes, 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 and there is death penalty. Right? I'm not saying that death penalty must be given. Right? If I am to give a vote, I would say yes, in accordance with what I have studied. When such a thing is there, death penalty must be given. But before we do that, the intent must be studied and the unrighteous approach must be ascertained or must be evaluated. That is what I would say. But again, it's a matter of debate. So
Thank you,
yeah.
Master. That helped. Yeah.
Well, thank you all. I know this was interesting Q&As. Loved it. Both the questions were amazing googlies, and I hope I did justice in terms of answering them. So thank you all. And if someone comments on this, I'll be happy to learn a lot more. Well, we'll close today's class with the Shanti Part and meet again next week. Hari Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat.